You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange, and as always, it's great to have you with us again this week. This week, we are going to be talking about a word that I think is pretty useful when we're in the process of developing our platforms, and that word is consistency. And it's a word that sometimes brings out different responses from us. A few of us, just before our podcast here went live, a few of us in the members club, we were just talking as I was discussing this with the group about what reaction that word gives to us or elicits from us. And some of us felt like consistency was a word that was maybe a little bit boring. And some of us feel like the word consistency is somewhat liberating. And I'm going to share what I hope is something that you will find immensely helpful if you're in the process of developing a message-based online platform. Basically, what I want to encourage us to do is to never underestimate the power of consistency. Now, those who know me best know that I don't spend a lot of time watching TV, but there are still a few things that I like to catch, and I will carve out time to watch certain things. At the top of that list is football. I thoroughly enjoy it. I can watch a game whether or not I actually like either of the teams that are playing. I can still watch the game and still find it very much enjoyable. And if you know much about professional football, you know that the career of the average professional football player tends to be relatively brief. Most only last in the league for really just a few years. I think I've seen that an average is somewhere around 3 years, believe it or not, before injuries catch up or before they're replaced with somebody younger and stronger and faster. So the tenure of a player in the NFL, for instance, not terribly long. So imagine you're somebody who's been playing football and now your career is finished. So what would you do with your life if you were a professional football player who was forced to retire, let's say in your early 30s, while you had most of your life still ahead of you? Would you keep working even though you didn't need money? If you had plenty of money, would you still work? Would you try to get into coaching or some other aspect of the game that wasn't quite as dependent on your age or your physical abilities? I don't know if you know this name, but Jared Veldheer was an offensive lineman for 5 NFL teams during the course of his career, and he recently retired. And when he retired, he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do with the rest of his life, which seems like a funny thing to really be debating about in your early 30s, but that's where he was at. He wasn't in need of an income, but he still has very much a lot of time to live, Lord willing, and he was trying to figure out, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And at first, admittedly, he wasn't really sure what to do. But he knew one thing. One thing he knew was that he wanted to serve people. And with that in mind, as he was thinking about what that would look like and what he was going to do with his time, at the time he was thinking about it, he learned of a need at his children's school, and he decided that he was going to volunteer to meet that need. Jared's children attend the school that's owned and operated by his local church. He learned that the school had a genuine need for a food service supervisor to oversee their cafeteria and to oversee their lunch program. And so Jared decided to apply for the job. But just think about this now. Put yourself in the shoes of the school administrator. He applies for the job of food service supervisor. To my knowledge, he had never done a job like that before, although he knew a lot about nutrition because of his years playing in the NFL. And so the school administrator gets his application, and she admitted that she was quite skeptical about it. She's looking at it, she's reading it, she's thinking about this, and she's thinking, I don't know about this, but he convinced her to give him a shot. And basically, long story short, everyone has been thrilled with the results ever since he started doing this. And this is what Jared does. He shows up at that school every day, and he makes above average quality lunches for the students. And he uses fresh ingredients. He uses creative ingredients to introduce the children to healthy foods that they might not have tried without a little encouragement. Sounds like I probably needed Jared in my life at some point along the way, because I'm a very boring eater. But he encourages the children to try all these new things, and the kids love him. And from what I understand, the kids love the food he makes. In fact, I watched an interview about this, and the kids were asking for seconds. And the one child went up to the line and was asking for thirds of some of the unique things that he had introduced them to. So the kids love him. The kids love the food that he makes. The school administration loves him. The parents love him as well. And in fact, the news media and the NFL, they recently picked up on what Jared has been doing in his retirement as he's serving each of these children. And they started telling his story. His story is starting to make headlines. In fact, if you do a little search for it, maybe if you just go on YouTube and search for NFL player make school lunches for children, I think you'll probably be able to find it. The NFL themselves just recently released a brief video package showing people what he was doing. But as I tell you that story, I want you to consider this. What would have happened if Jared showed up at that school once, but never again? Or what would have happened if he only showed up to cook for those children on the days when he felt inspired? Or how about this? What if he stopped putting his best foot forward and stopped offering above average food options to the children after treating them to great food options for several months? I think if that's what he did, there would be no story. We would not be talking about him this week, and we certainly wouldn't be holding him up as an example, really, of anything good. And the truth is, when the day comes and he stops serving the children in this way, there are going to be a lot of sad people because they've learned to appreciate who he is and his consistent service to others. Now, let's relate this to what we're doing with online platforms because there is a very direct connection. For those of us who are in the process of developing online platforms, there's a lot we can learn from Jared's consistency. Consistency is one of the primary traits that sets apart content creators who succeed from those who doubt. I say that again. Think about it a second. Consistency is one of the primary traits that sets apart content creators who succeed from those who dabble. Consistency is a key to our platforms gaining traction. So if you are building an online message-based platform, never underestimate the power of consistency. A content creator who consistently serves people with high-quality content at predictable time intervals will reap the benefits of their faithful efforts. And I want to suggest 6 things that I hope will be very helpful to you, 6 ways that consistency will help you as you are actively trying to build your platform. And the first is this: consistency trains an audience to show up and consume your content. We are all creatures of routine, every single one of us. There are things that we do like clockwork in our day-to-day lives. We are creatures of routine. We like knowing when things are going to happen and when they're not going to happen. Now, if I tell my audience that I'm going to release a podcast on a certain day, they expect it to arrive when I tell them it will. If I promise a book release or a blog article or a social media post or some other piece of content, I better deliver it when I said I would. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the trust of my audience, and I'll never train them to show up and consume my content at a specific. So consider trains an audience show up and consume content. Here's a second thing it does. Consistency will actually cause your numbers to. Now, by that, well, you'll become regular consumers of your content. Your numbers are going to grow naturally. And people feel safe sharing your content with others because you're consistent about creating it. They'll make your content, the content that you create, whether it's recorded or video or written, they will make your content part of daily or weekly routine, and you're going to use that in analytics. Your analytics actually show that consistency causes your numbers to grow because people share it with others and they make it part of their daily or their weekly routine. Here's a third reason that consistency definitely helps when it comes to our platforms. It contributes to our sales increasing. Now, why would I say consistency contributes to your sales increasing? Well, marketing arms, when your biggest marketing arm to be the pieces of free that you're sharing basis. So as you consistently content, you'll be opportunity to let listeners and readers and watchers know about the paid offers and the paid options that you offer. And I can personally testify to the fact that sales of my products and sales of my services are directly impacted by the consistency with which I create and share free content with my audience. So consistency directly contributes to your sales increasing. Fourth reason that I think consistency is important is this: consistency helps build your online authority. Authority is something you will eventually develop if you keep offering valuable content that meets the needs of a set group of people. So if you produce helpful content for school teachers, for example, and you do that on a consistent basis, many teachers will eventually consider you their go-to authority for educational help. And by the way, this is true in any field. So pick whatever field you want, golfing or baking or hiking or whatever your topic is. This is true in any field. The authorities in most subject areas are those who have the audacity to believe that they can create and share helpful content with others. And they do that without hesitation, and they do that without reservation on a consistent basis. Consistency helps build your online authority. All right, here's number 5 on my list. Consistency makes your platform a safer place for others to invest in. Several years ago, an advertiser who had been following my online platform, he contacted me, and he and his company, they wanted to advertise their service in my newsletter and on my website. And because I was consistently serving my audience with fresh content, they basically felt like my platform would be a very safe place and a very good place for them to advertise. And so we struck up an agreement. And basically, over the course of a couple of years, $30,000 advertising on my platform to do that. But never would have done that if I wasn't consistently creating helpful content that served my audience. And I could share similar stories about agents and about publishers who were willing to work with me for the very same reason. Consistency makes your platform a safer place for others to invest in. Number 6 on my list is this, and I could probably think of even 5 or 6 more things, but these are kind of my top 6 right now, or top 6 that are on my mind. But number 6, this is a reason why you want to be consistent. If you are struggling with imposter syndrome, and that's something that we've all wrestled with to one degree or another, consistency will help convince you that what you're creating online has real value. Many people struggle to see themselves as a helpful authority on any subject, but that's far from true. You know more than you realize, and you have the capacity to help more people than you're probably willing to admit to yourself. The more consistent you are with content creation, the more opportunity you're going to have to help people. Those people are going to give you feedback. They're also going to express their thankfulness to you. Being consistent in your content creation efforts, that's going to help convince you that you aren't an imposter. Your content is valuable, and your willingness to share your expertise with others will have a measurable impact in their lives. So if you're struggling to become a consistent content creator, let me give you a small suggestion that I'm calling it a small suggestion. It's not really a small suggestion. It's probably a big suggestion. But my suggestion to you, if you are struggling to become a consistent content creator, is this: write out your ideal content creation schedule. I'm working with a small group of people, and one of my challenges for them this week was to write out your ideal content creation schedule. Is there a time of day you prefer to work? What content are you willing to publicly commit to making available online? These are things that I want you to be thinking about, and just write out your ideal content creation schedule. Develop a schedule that you're willing to commit to, and then keep that schedule regardless of whether or not you feel inspired to do so. Because I'll tell you what, some days you won't feel inspired to do so. Some days you will feel like skipping it. Some days you will feel like not doing it. But if it becomes part of your routine, if you develop consistency, you're going to see a lot more success than someone who only works when they feel inspired. Deadlines and accountability to the people you serve will help you gain a sense of consistency if that's been the piece that your platform has been lacking. Never underestimate the power of consistency. I am convinced that the successful people I know are people who are just willing to stay consistent and keep working through discouragement, through setbacks, through all of those things, and they just outlasted everybody else. I have met a lot of very successful people in my life, especially over the past few years, and I have met people that I think are doing things at a high level, and I think the reason many of them are doing things at a high level is that they just committed themselves to do it and said, nothing is going to interrupt me, nothing is going to stop me, and be so consistent, and they learned how to serve people, and they outlasted those that were only pulling. So if you want to get good at what you're doing, if you want your platform to grow, never underestimate the power of consistency. It's huge. Before we finish up this week and before I jump into the members only Q&A that I have each week with our members club that is live on the call right here with me right now, I just want to invite you, if you are listening via our podcast or if you're watching us via YouTube, we'd invite you to stop over at platformlaunchers.com. You can see my notes for this week's topic on consistency. You can see that in the blog. So stop over and you'll be able to see the blog and maybe take some notes from some of the content there. You'll also find our podcast right there on the website, and you'll find the opportunity to become part of our members club, and you could take a 2-week test drive and just try it out for free and see if this is right for you. So just visit platformlaunchers.com. We'd love to welcome you to be part of the group and get to meet you and hear a little bit about the platform that you're in the process of developing. But that's it for us this week. And we look forward to catching up with you again next time. And right now it's time for me to segue over into our members only Q&A. And you know what, before I segue into our members only Q&A, I'm just going to ask everybody on the call. We had a really good attendance for our call tonight. And really quickly, I just want you to say hello from, and then tell people what state you're from on the count of 3. So unmute your mics and let's hear that from everybody on the count of 3. 3, 2, 1.
Hello
Hello.
from
Illinois.
Carolina.
Awesome. We had a really good attendance tonight for our call, and we're going to jump into the Q&A with our members club in just a second here. But thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to catching up with you again next time.